Gals, I'm Brian.
And I'm Brad.
And this marks the first episode I've ever edited because I fumbled the opening and I started over. That's the most this podcast gets edited. All right. So the non-spoiler review, the movie is RRR. I'm thinking the clickbait title will be, if you like movies about an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object, this is the film for you, or something like that. But how would you describe this film? Because I'd already heard stuff beforehand, but as far as I know, you went in blind.
Yeah, I went in blind into this movie. This movie is epic in a grand scale.
And Brad wants to see Baahubali 1 and 2, which I'm only mentioning because that is also grand in scale, and I'm pretty sure everybody listening to this review has at least an idea of how big Baahubali is.
I have none.
I've
seen it. Yeah, I seen it. I seen a small trailer of it on a YouTube video of underrated movies. So I figured I want to check it out. I know that'd be kind of down your alley. So I know almost nothing.
No, I just love that the YouTube video was underappreciated movie or underrated movies, you said. And I'm pretty sure Baahubali 1 and 2 were like the record breakers for Indian cinema. They were like avatars, but worldwide, yes.
Yeah, not here. Yeah.
I just love that. Sorry, you were saying.
But yeah, this epic. I would say that the fight scenes in this movie, throughout this movie, are pretty epic. I would say non-spoilery. Yeah, there's a giant conflict that I don't know if it has some historical backing, but I'm sure it's not entirely a historical backed, of how the British invaded India and how, in this case, how they fought back. I mean, like I said, I don't know much. I don't know the Indian history, so I don't want to go too deep into there. But
yeah, I definitely don't either. I'm no expert, but if anyone was from like the US or outside of India and didn't know, I would sum it up as, think about the US's history with the Native Americans, specific, like how the US treated, or not how the US, how the British treated Native Americans. Imagine Native Americans came out of that conflict successful, ultimately.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty solid.
That's as far as I've gotten from this movie and other context clues elsewhere. Yeah, it's from an American perspective, it would kind of be like the beginning of the British and Native Americans and the end of Americans and slavery.
Okay.
That's the setting. We don't spoilers, but it's not really, we don't end the movie with like the British government being overthrown and kicked out of India. That's not. Yeah, this is it. 12 years a slave didn't end with the abolishment of slavery. It was a story in that setting. Except this is a hell of a lot more epic with some wild. I mean, even if the whole story was inspired by a true story, none of the action is real.
I mean, no spoilers. But you're telling me that you couldn't throw a large object that weighs probably upwards of 1,000 pounds, like 100 feet. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but you probably couldn't do that.
All right, I'll use an example that won't spoil this movie. If you watched Captain America: Civil War and saw how Bucky unseated a motorcycle rider, grabbed the motorcycle by the handles, and then flipped it in the air 180 and mounted in one smooth motion. If you saw that and you were like, yeah, that could happen, everything in this movie is possible. But if you're the other 99.99999% of the human population, it's just going to be, at worst, you're going to be like, no, I'm not into this movie. At best, you're just gonna be like, this is epic, this is redonkulous, and I am here for it. And I think more people than not would be in the latter camp. You'd have to be. This would really have to be not your thing, like categorically, for you to, I feel, not get caught up in it somewhere. And also, we've been talking a lot about the action and things. Obviously, I mean, that's what the trailers will show you. But it also has a really strong heart in multiple ways. You know, like
it does a really good job of taking two independent stories and combining them into one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another movie that kind of does something similar, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. But
let me put it this way. In American movies, if they're going to have a big emotional punch to them, it at best is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, where in the third act, in the penultimate moment, Peter Quill, right before he defeats the villain, is going to get a vision of his dearly departed mother and then learn a lesson to have him succeed. And it will be 5 seconds of and then a singular tear. And that's like the height of emotionality in testosterone in action movies in the US, where testosterone is a large ingredient. Here, it's like you could put it up against romantic comedies in the US and have just as much emotionality as a fully romantic comedy movie, in terms of like strong connections, men being vulnerable, like being one of the two main actors. I thought at multiple times in the film, like in an American, from an American viewpoint, he would look weak, but I loved it. I'll try to be as vague as I can, but the first time I noticed that was like some douchebag like ended up pushing him to the ground or something. And he sat there for a couple minutes looking like, why are you being like this? Like kind of like a bully victim. But he was there wondering that, not as a point of weakness, but more like, what the fuck are you doing? And like, I don't know. If you had any pickup artist see that scene, he'd be like, this is a beta male. But we see him, we know what he can do. And we're just like, no, he's being vulnerable. He's confused. He's like, why are you? It's all those things, but also he's just a boss. It's like if you saw Dwayne Johnson in that position, you'd be like, yeah, he's being vulnerable. He's not immediately smacking this guy down, but it's Dwayne Johnson. You gotta call him a beta? You gotta be fucking kidding me. And most people already know this, but the whole title of the film, RRR, did I say RRR?
Yes, you did. I think you did.
I definitely did in one of those other takes. Might not have until now. Whoops. But the whole title is meaningless. Like in every territory, there's a new 3 R words as the official title, but really it's just the initials of the 2 stars and the director. And I don't know if I already told you this, but yeah, the director or somebody said, yeah, the reason we all 3 haven't worked together before is because the studios couldn't afford us. So yeah, it's it's big, it's loud, it's
bombastic.
Yeah, it's big, it's bombastic, it's vulnerable.
But it's still good.
Beautiful, yeah. Yeah, none of those.
Still very good.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about in the non-spoiler review?
This movie is tough to talk about non-spoilers. So I'm ready to get into the spoilers.
All right. Well, we're gonna tell you our rating right before we close out. But first, if you want to watch the first 10 minutes of my reaction, I recorded and uploaded it. That link's down below. And what is your rating of this movie, sir?
I'm gonna go with. I'm drawing a blank, and of course, I don't have my laptop in front of me because I'm not at home right now. But
I'll go from top to bottom. Ayahuasca.
Just go. Give me the one underneath ayahuasca.
Mushroom.
I didn't know if it was mushroom or if it was
jointy or whatever.
No, I thought there's one more in there, but
probably
without cheating, I can't. But I'm gonna go with
edible.
Edible. Yeah, I didn't know which one was higher, so I'm gonna go with the higher of the two. Whichever one that is, if it's mushroom or edible, I'm going with the higher one of the two.
If you ever need to remember which one's higher, a mushroom will get you a lot higher than an edible. I've heard. Never experienced, but I've heard. My dear old mamas told me about her days doing the drugs, and I'm only saying that because she would hate to hear me say that. It would make her so angry. Yeah, I'm edible as well. This one, it's a 3-hour film.
Edible or mushroom? You said edible.
Oh, I meant mushroom.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. But yeah, it's big. The action gets wild. It gets emotional. But you might see this, unless my memory is failing me. I think there's more often action in like Baahubali. So that was. So for
it's probably close.
It's probably close.
Yeah.
It's probably close, but it's interesting because I could have done with one more action sequence. It doesn't feel like.
Okay, we'll get into the spoilers when I'm going to respond to that, but yeah.
Okay, it doesn't feel like we're missing anything, where it doesn't suffer for that, but it felt while I was watching it that there was just so much room that I could have done with another action scene. Like, and that's so rare. I don't think I've ever walked out of a film and be like, I'd like some more, please. Especially a 3-hour film. Let's say that, Hollywood tries to make movies half as long as this as a rule. Avengers Endgame is the exception in the US. So yeah, that might be one of the reasons why, because it's so lean, our movies here comparatively, but I could have done with one more. And also, I guess this will be the first thing I'll touch on in spoilers, but I thought it was a very interesting, we talked about Beam, but the other character, Raju, I thought it was very interesting that they didn't give a shit if I was on his side, because I won't spoil anything, but from the get, I was like, I'm pretty sure he's one of the two main guys, unless I'm forgetting, and I don't like him right now. And then later, spoilers, I won't say it. There's a second half to that sentence, which I'll say in the spoiler review. But this movie may be a mushroom.
Or it may be a mushroom.
But either way, this movie is dope. And if anyone was wondering, Brad is in. He's traveling abroad.
Yeah, for the week.
Jet setting. He fueled up the jet.
Yep.
He fueled up the electric jet. Make sense of that. But either way, this is dope because
movies are dope.